In the quiet heat of a Namibian afternoon, a group of journalists, engineers, and government officials gathered on the edge of a dusty airstrip. At the center of the crowd, gleaming beneath the sun, was a car unlike anything the automotive world had ever seen. There were no fuel tanks, no charging ports, just a seamless, aerodynamic body and the quiet, steady hum of a hidden energy core. Maxwell Chikumbutso stood beside it, calm but with a spark of challenge in his eyes. Months of skepticism, whispered accusations, and outright dismissal had led to this moment. Today wasn't just another test drive, it was the range test, the trial that would silence critics or prove them right. The rules were simple: drive the car until it stops. No refueling, no recharging, no tricks. The route stretched from the airstrip, through the baking desert roads, and across the unforgiving Namib escarpment, a distance long enough to cripple any conventional electric car. Cameras rolled as Maxwell slid into the driver's seat. The car glided forward, soundless, accelerating smoothly until the village disappeared into a haze of dust and heat. In the chase vehicle behind, a team of experts monitored every detail: speed, temperature, energy output. For the first 200 kilometers, there was nothing unusual, just flawless performance, smooth acceleration, and a steady hum. At 400 kilometers, the murmurs began. No battery on Earth could sustain that output without some form of external charge. At 600 kilometers, the experts exchanged uneasy glances. By the time the odometer rolled past 1,000 kilometers, the tone of the convoy had changed entirely. Skepticism was giving way to disbelief. One engineer leaned forward in his seat, eyes locked on the live data feed. "This isn't possible," he whispered. Maxwell kept driving, unfazed, watching the horizon ahead as the desert shifted to rocky highlands. Villages came and went. Children waved as the strange, silent car passed through. Night fell, and still the hum remained steady, no drop in power, no sign of strain. It was on the second dawn, somewhere in the cool valleys near the Angolan border, that the real shock hit. A sudden burst of acceleration up a steep incline showed increased power output, as if the car had somehow drawn strength from the journey itself. The lead engineer in the convoy stared at his instruments, then at the road ahead, his mind scrambling for an explanation. Back in the capital, news crews were already reporting the impossible figures. Maxwell's name was trending worldwide. In major cities across the globe, automotive CEOs and government ministers watched the live feed with growing unease. What was unfolding on that lonely African road wasn't just a range test, it was a direct challenge to the foundation of the world's energy economy. Somewhere deep in the shadows, boardrooms were falling silent. Calls were being made. Plans were being drawn. Maxwell knew they were watching. And he knew that the longer he drove, the more dangerous his journey would become. But turning back was no longer an option. The road ahead stretched endlessly into the morning mist. The car's hum was steady, the dashboard lights unwavering. Somewhere in the distance, a figure in a black SUV was waiting, watching, and making a call of their own. The black SUV had been shadowing the convoy since dawn, always keeping just enough distance to avoid suspicion. Maxwell had noticed it hours ago, but said nothing. He kept his focus on the road, the steady pull of the steering wheel, and the faint vibration beneath his fingertips, a sensation that somehow felt alive. By midday, the test had crossed the 2,000-kilometer mark. The journalists in the chase vehicles were wide-eyed, their commentary now hushed and reverent. The lead engineer's laptop screen was a wall of data, every metric screaming that the car should have stopped long ago. Yet the readings were so stable, it was as if the vehicle existed outside the known laws of physics. The SUV closed the gap. Through his rearview mirror, Maxwell caught the faint glint of a camera lens pointed directly at him. Whoever they weren't just observing, they were documenting. He decided to push the car harder. The accelerator sank under his foot, and the self-powered engine responded instantly, the car surging forward with a low, almost musical resonance. The convoy vehicle struggled to keep pace, and the SUV dropped back slightly, though it didn't disappear. They entered a stretch of highland road carved between jagged cliffs. The air was cooler here, mist curling through the crags. Maxwell glanced at the dashboard and saw something he hadn't expected, a subtle fluctuation in the power reading, not a loss, but a spike. The car was generating more energy than it was consuming. He didn't have long to think about it. The SUV suddenly accelerated, closing the distance at alarming speed. In his side mirror, Maxwell saw a passenger leaning out of the window, speaking urgently into a headset. Seconds later, the sound of a low-flying drone filled the air. It appeared over the cliffside, sleek and black, with a device mounted beneath it, a directional emitter of some kind, aimed squarely at his car. The hum of the engine changed pitch, as though the car was resisting an invisible force. Maxwell's grip on the wheel tightened. The test wasn't just about endurance anymore. Now, someone was actively trying to end it. The road curved sharply ahead, offering only two choices: keep driving and hope the car's mysterious core could withstand whatever was coming, or take the narrow dirt path down into the valley, away from the prying eyes and the growing threat above. He took a deep breath, feeling the power surge again under the hood. Somewhere inside, the car seemed to want him to keep going. Maxwell stayed on the main road. The convoy behind him tensed, unsure if he'd made the right call. The drone descended lower, its emitter pulsing with a faint blue light. A strange, oscillating hum filled the air, not mechanical, but almost organic, like the vibration of some massive insect's wings. The car shuddered, but didn't slow. In fact, the dashboard reading spiked again, climbing past anything Maxwell had seen before. It was as if the emitter's signal was being absorbed, converted, and fed back into the system. In the chase vehicle, the lead engineer's eyes widened. It's not being disrupted. It's feeding on it. The black SUV swerved ahead, cutting across Maxwell's path. Two men in dark tactical gear stepped out, their movements crisp and calculated. One carried a compact device that looked suspiciously like a weaponized EMP launcher. Maxwell slowed just enough to gauge the timing, then gritted his teeth and pressed the accelerator to the floor. The car responded instantly, the power surge throwing him back into his seat. The front grille slammed into the SUV's bumper with a metallic crunch, sending the vehicle spinning sideways into the cliff wall. The drone swooped in, angling for a direct hit with its emitter. But the moment it closed to within 10 meters, the car's hum deepened into a resonant growl. There was a visible shimmer in the air, a distortion, like heat waves, radiating outward. The drone's systems flickered. Its lights dimmed, then went dead. It spun out of control and smashed into the rocks below. Silence. Maxwell didn't slow. The convoy scrambled to catch up, the journalists shouting into their cameras, their footage now turning from a simple range test into something that looked dangerously close to a technological thriller. Far away, in a secure conference room lit only by the glow of wall-sized monitors, a panel of men and women watched the live feed in stunned silence. One of them, an older man with sharp eyes, finally spoke. His accelerated the timetable. We moved to Phase 2 immediately. Back on the Highland Road, Maxwell was unaware of the exact nature of the storm he'd just triggered. All he knew was that the car's power was climbing, the road was narrowing, and somewhere beyond the next bend, more eyes were watching. The bend opened into a vast plateau, the horizon stretching endlessly under a sky washed in late afternoon gold. From up here, Maxwell could see miles ahead, yet what caught his attention wasn't the view, but the faint glint of metallic shapes positioned along the road far in the distance. It wasn't a checkpoint. It was an ambush. 3 matte black trucks were parked in a staggered formation, each outfitted with strange, high-mounted arrays that looked like experimental weaponry. The convoy behind him slowed instinctively, uncertainty crackling over the radio channels. But Maxwell kept his foot steady, the car's hum now an almost hypnotic resonance under his seat. As they closed the distance, one of the arrays activated, unleashing a focused beam of directed energy toward the car. The air around the beam shimmered violently, distorting the light like a desert mirage. But instead of weakening, the car surged again, the beam feeding into its mysterious core like rain into a parched well. The lead truck abruptly cut its beam and began to reverse. The operators inside had realized too late, they weren't draining Maxwell's vehicle. They were making it stronger. The second truck switched tactics. A hatch opened on its roof, revealing a cylindrical device that began to pulse in rhythmic bursts, each accompanied by a concussive shockwave that rattled the ground. The blasts weren't aimed at the car, they were aimed at the driver. Maxwell's vision wavered, the world blurring at the edges. His hands trembled on the steering wheel, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. Somewhere in the haze, he thought he heard the car's hum deepen, almost as if it were aware of his struggle. The dashboard lit up with new symbols he had never seen before, one of them flashing insistently. He pressed it. The world snapped into clarity. A faint, translucent shield, barely perceptible, unfurled in front of the windshield, and the concussive blasts broke harmlessly against it. The third truck panicked and opened fire with something that looked disturbingly like conventional weaponry. But the bullets didn't even touch the car. Each one flattened midair and fell to the asphalt with a clink, as though they'd hit an invisible wall. The convoy's lead engineer stared in disbelief. "This isn't just an energy source," he muttered. "It's evolving." Maxwell swerved between the trucks, the vehicle slipping past like a shadow, untouched and unstoppable. Behind him, the attackers were scrambling to retreat, but Maxwell didn't glance back. He was too focused on what lay ahead, because far on the horizon, cutting through the golden haze, a massive silhouette was rising. It wasn't a building. It wasn't a mountain. It was something waiting for him. As Maxwell drew closer, the silhouette began to take form, tall, angular structures jutting from a central spire, like a colossal tuning fork forged from obsidian and steel. The air around it shimmered, the same distortion he'd seen when the car absorbed the drone signal. It wasn't just waiting for him. It was calling to the car. The hum beneath his seat shifted, harmonizing with the silent vibration in the air. Lights along the car's console blinked in perfect synchronization with faint pulses radiating from the spire. The feeling in his chest was impossible to ignore. He wasn't just driving toward it, he was being drawn in. The convoy followed at a distance, unsure whether to intervene. The journalists were already speaking in hurried tones to their cameras, framing this not as a test drive anymore but as the revelation of a hidden chapter in technological history. The spire loomed larger until it dominated the horizon. Now Maxwell could see there were no roads leading to it, no signs, no power lines, just a vast, barren expanse of cracked earth surrounding it like a moat of desolation. And yet, the car glided forward as if the ground itself were guiding him. The moment he crossed the invisible boundary of the barren zone, his dashboard erupted with data streams, symbols, waveforms, readings far beyond anything conventional sensors could produce. The hum reached a deep, resonant pitch that seemed to resonate inside his bones. The convoy's radios crackled with static, then went completely dead. Even their engines began to sputter, struggling against some unseen interference. The self-powered car, however, moved flawlessly, thriving in the very conditions that were crippling everything else. When Maxwell reached the base of the spire, he realized just how massive it truly was. The structure wasn't just tall, it was impossibly tall, vanishing into the haze above like it pierced the sky itself. Along its surface, faint geometric patterns pulsed with a living light, and at its center, a circular aperture slowly began to open. The car came to a smooth stop, uncommanded. The hum faded into complete silence. Maxwell's hands stayed on the wheel, but his instincts told him this moment wasn't about control anymore. From the aperture, a beam of soft, golden light spilled outward, not blinding, but warm, steady, deliberate. And then, the car answered. A column of pure energy shot upward from its core, connecting with the spire in a seamless thread of light. The ground trembled, the air vibrated, and for a moment it felt as if the entire plateau was holding its breath. Far beyond the horizon, deep inside that shadowy conference room, the older man with sharp eyes leaned forward and whispered a single word.